Hey everyone, welcome to Shelter on Base. I am Therese Vinal, joined by Carmen Kiew, Anthony Garcia, and Kuiper, and of course our special guest for today, the Giants manager, Gabe Kapler, everybody. Round of applause. Thanks so much for joining us, Gabe. What has quarantine been like for you, and how are you holding up, especially a guy that, you know, is on the move and has such a busy schedule?
Yeah, I guess it's been, under the circumstances, understanding that this has been a very difficult time for the entire country, the entire world. Under the circumstances, I've really gotten a lot out of it. Just personally, I've had an opportunity to dig into podcasts that I was missing and watch a couple of shows that I really enjoyed and connect with players and staff. So on a personal front, I've actually learned a lot about myself. I found myself to be a little bit more relaxed during this time and a little bit more easygoing because conversations can be a little bit more open-ended, right? There's not somewhere to be and somewhere to hustle to. So not to get too silver linings with you, there have been some really positive things that have come out of this isolation and quarantine, and I'm doing really well. Thanks for asking.
I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you what podcasts and what shows, because I'm always looking for content to binge.
Yeah, also curious.
I would start with the podcast, and Scott Harris sent it my way. It's called We Crashed, and is the story of WeWork, which is super fascinating. So that was a good one. NPR's Up First is
I listen to every morning. It's the best.
Yeah, it's great.
Yes.
For 15 minutes, and it just like gets you up to speed. And been listening to that one in bed. And then from a show's perspective, I think Fleabag on Showtime is absolutely brilliant.
Love nice. Fleabag. Yeah.
That was really cool. And honestly, I admit it, it's like pure candy. And I'm not even sure it was like even that fair was Tiger King.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I hate even like saying it out loud. So embarrassed, but I was fascinated by it, and it just the power of the animals was really interesting. Like it was a real draw for me, and then the characters were so hard to turn away from. So that was another one. How about you guys?
Well, did you see they cast Nick Cage as Joe Exotic in a Netflix show?
I did not. That sounds not like something I'd want to watch. It's interesting. Like once I was through that show, I didn't want to follow any of the stories anymore. It just kind of makes you feel kind of icky. You know what I mean?
Totally.
I don't think you're a true crime type of guy, but you can correct me if I'm wrong. But I like Crime Junkie. That's like one of my favorite podcasts.
Oh, that's cool.
It's hosted by two women, and they narrate stories. Most of them are unsolved because they want to bring attention to those cases. So I really enjoy that one. But like, yeah, it's like a lot of murder. So I don't know if you're like into it.
I like true crime. I don't know that it's like my go-to genre, but I would be super interested in learning more.
Yeah, check it out. That one's like less gory and stuff, and it's more about like the story. So I recommend that one.
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
I'll up on that.
I'm excited for the blog post that says Gabe Kapler interested in murder. That's going to come out of it.
Like we don't need any of that. Like that's so.
I agree. Don't aggregate that, please.
Have you been getting into The Last Dance? They've been airing on ESPN. Seems to be like the thing to watch. Everyone wants to see on Sundays.
Yeah. So I mean, that's like the era of basketball that's closest to my heart. And less so like those couple of seasons at the end, but more like mid 90s and even like 93, 94, like that's the era that I just was captivated by basketball. So yeah, it's been fun to follow the stories and it's just more like a trip down memory lane. And then yesterday, obviously it was Willie Mays' birthday. Mm-hmm. So the thing that kept popping into my mind is like Willie Mays, Michael Jordan, Babe Ruth. Like there's only a couple of athletes in history that I think fall into that category that are that iconic. And so yeah, I was thinking about how cool it is that I've had an opportunity to talk to Willie Mays and shake his hand, because he does like fall into that category of Michael Babe Ruth and maybe a handful of others.
Yeah, I've been around Willie a couple times, and I remember he let me hold his dog once, and I was like, "This is next level." Like,
That's a lot of pressure.
The dog.
It was like this cute little poodle. It wasn't little. It was actually pretty big, but still, I was like, I'm starstruck by just the dog. So
yeah. I get that 100%.
Yeah.
Besides all the leisure watching TV shows and listening to podcasts, obviously you've been hard at work. You've been doing simulated games with the players. How have you been keeping the guys engaged as well as your coaching staff while you all physically can't be together?
Yeah, the sim games are actually a lot of fun. And those have actually, so yes, the players are involved, but they're involved as the players, right? And on our Zoom calls, we're actually strategically picking through the game. So, we played the Dodgers, we played the Diamondbacks. We're on our second series with the Dodgers. And what it's allowing us to do is learn the other teams around the league and how we would strategically tackle opposing pitching staffs by way of example. And our entire staff has been on those calls watching the game in real time. So what we're doing is we're pausing at various points in the game and talking about which bullpen arm we would use to take down a pocket of, let's say, Muncy and Bellinger, and which pinch hitter is best for Clayton Kershaw or Madison Bumgarner. So, and we've had a lot of kind of inspiring conversations. And then we do a post-game recap. We'll sit around and talk about what moves we made in game that we liked and what moves we would do over. And it's just been a really healthy exercise to keep us involved in baseball and our coaches really intellectually engaged. It's been a real positive for us.
That's dope. I just awesome. When I was growing up playing video games as a kid, my dad would always be like, "What's it ever going to do for you? What good are video games?" And I just want to say that the manager of the Giants uses video games for strategy to help make his team better. So your face, Dad.
What a time to be alive.
It's not exactly like the stand-up Street Fighter at 7-Eleven. It's a different kind of video game, but I actually think there's a lot of value in just getting lost in games from time to time. So yeah, I can certainly endorse.
One of the other things that you and the coaches have been doing that has been publicized now is that you're offering simulated seasons for the junior Giants, because as a mother myself, we're trying to think of things of what to do with our kids, and having no sports teams that they can go to or practices or anything like that, kids are going stir crazy. So what inspired this idea and came about with the junior Giants for you and your coaching staff?
No, I'm so glad you asked that question. So we just see an underserved community in kids who are at home right now and trying to figure out how to spend their time. And so we reached out to all of the members of our coaching staff and asked them to make videos for the junior Giants. And the videos are like Kai Correa, our bench coach, showing the kids how to make a glove out of a cardboard box. And like Andrew Bailey, our pitching coach, drawing targets on the wall and using household items to kind of rep what kids aren't able to do right now, which is get out onto fields and play the game they love. So kind of a version of like shadow boxing, kind of a version of do it yourself at home. And then the videos that I've made have been kind of overarching themes around the importance of education, anti-bullying messages, which I feel extraordinarily passionate about, and which is happening right now. Like, just because people are sheltered at home and there's this isolation and quarantine happening doesn't mean that there isn't like bullying happening around the internet right now. And a lot of kids are dealing with that. So just, kind of talking about how to be strong through times like that has been important messaging for us. And we don't think there's a better recipient of those messages than the junior Giants.
Yeah, I'd love to kind of pivot off that really quickly. And May is Mental Health Awareness Month. How important is kind of mental health, I think, in the game of baseball? Like, what's your perspective on it?
Critical. Wow. I don't think it's an area that has enough light shined on it, frankly. I think, in baseball, we tend to be so kind of macho, right? Like, we don't have, there's not enough expression of the things that we're going through as men and women in baseball. And I think mental health has like a stigma around it. And one of the things that we can do as leaders in our industry and in the baseball community is draw as much attention to it as possible. Like, high quality mental health is just as important for baseball players and athletes as high quality physical health. So like if you have a pulled hamstring or a torn quad muscle, you're not going to be as effective on the field. And we're going to address those things very seriously. But I think it's really important that we pay as much attention to players, staff members, and people in our baseball community who are struggling with mental health issues, because they're not going to be as effective on the field or in their lives, period. And so I feel pretty strongly that we can spend some time right now focusing on mental health issues.
Have you guys been paying more attention to that, especially since with everyone sheltering in place at home, baseball players are no different from ordinary people in this regard, but anxiety and depression are definitely on the rise because of this right now. Have you and the coaching staff like taken it upon yourselves to just check in with each other and the players and just say like, hey man, besides physically, how are you doing?
Absolutely. I think it's the first question we ask ourselves, like, how are you doing with your time at home right now? And one of the questions that I've encouraged our staff to ask and that we are asking our players is there anybody that you know right now that's really having a hard time? Because oftentimes those players, those coaches aren't going to speak up. They're not going to say, I need help. But they might tell the person that they trust the most that they're dealing with something financially, something in their family, something that we don't know about. And getting tipped off that somebody is struggling and could use some support is really important. So we just finish every conversation like, hey, we're having this conversation about you, how you're doing through this difficult time. But have you talked to anybody recently that could use a call from one of our coaches, or they could use a call from our EAP, our Employee Assistant Program lead right now? And so if somebody says, yeah, you should call this person, we're on it right away. And so that question has been really useful.
Awesome. Well, to bring things to a lighter note, I'm going to turn it over to Cole, who has a fun game in store for fans and for us to get to know you a little bit better.
Yeah, thank you for that, Therese. I'm like trying to figure out the segue there. I think you nailed it. But yeah,
let's talk about rap music now.
Gabe, we like to do kind of a lightning round, pepper you with some quick questions, just pop the answer out. It's a lot of this or that, just to get to know you, let the fans get to know you a little bit behind the mask, behind the jersey. All right, so first question, dogs or cats?
Dogs, for sure.
Dogs. Fantastic.
Very quick.
Pull-ups or burpees?
Well, hold on 1 second. I know this is a lightning round. I know we're trying to move fast here, but
yeah.
Is there any follow-up discussion to any of these questions? Or are they just like,
if you
there
want
can
to play,
be.
it's up to you. Dealer's choice.
You want to say something about cats?
Yeah.
No, I don't think so. But I just want to be a part of the ground rules here, because obviously I want us to have an inspired discussion. Like I want to be able to riff.
If any of these topics really tweaks your interest, dive right in.
Yeah.
Let's hear it.
It's an open forum here.
Yeah. Pull-ups or burpees?
Pull-ups for sure. That's really a fun one. Like if for our fitness enthusiasts who may be watching, I personally think like the pull-up is the ideal upper body exercise. So yeah, I'm in on pull-ups.
What about if you're slowly turning into a potato and can barely do anything at this point? What do you recommend to get into pull-ups?
So I would say like
asking for a friend.
That's great. My recommendation would be to walk, right? Like right now we're spending so much time on the phone. We can't really be around other people. And we're kind of missing that human connection and that interaction. So my best recommendation is take your calls outside, even take your Zoom calls outside, walk with your phone. And because right now we could easily fall into the pattern of doing all of our Zoom calls and sun comes up, sun goes down, and we really haven't been outside. So easiest thing to do right now is probably walk if you have the capacity.
Okay, I'll tell my friend that.
I feel seen by that. All right, treadmill run or trail run?
Trail run. Like, I think that goes along with what we just talked about, right?
Yeah.
Get outside. So San Francisco, my favorite thing about San Francisco is the hills and the views. So it's not exactly a trail, but like if you're going to run hills on a treadmill inside, and right now we don't even have access, most of us don't have access to gyms. So get outside and run a trail or run a hill.
Perfect. Beer, wine, or whiskey?
Whiskey, beer, and wine in that order.
Okay.
And we could get much more specific about that.
We'll save that for the sequel.
Okay.
Who is better at fantasy football, you or Farhan?
Probably now Farhan. He's been really good recently, and I think I would be much more confident if this were 15 years ago. So what I'd say is Farhan somehow has much more time to focus on fantasy football. I don't have any time to focus on fantasy football, but I would love to be able to dig in and get back to that level. Right now, he's the champ.
All right. Curb Your Enthusiasm or The British Office?
Ooh, did you do some research?
I did a little bit of research.
Those two shows are neck and neck. That's such a great question. I'd probably go Curbed, but that, was it 1 or 2 seasons of The British Office? I think it was 2.
It was 2.
Two in the movie or reunion.
Yeah. That was an incredible show. I enjoyed it more even than our version of The Office.
Yeah. Jon Stewart or Stephen Colbert?
Ooh, that's tough too. Probably Stephen Colbert. I would just probably laugh more.
Yeah, the satire angle, classic Colbert Report. Eggs or avocados?
Eggs right now. If I was just going on flavor, probably avocados. But eggs for right now. It's like it's one of my staples.
How do you take them?
Over easy, over a steak. Like I'll make a ribeye. I'll make it in a sous vide. So a sous vide is like a hot water bath.
Oh yeah, I have a sous vide.
I actually knew that. I knew that one.
That's incredible. So in a bag, coarse sea salt, 133 degrees, out, cast iron, 1 minute on each side, butter on each side, 4 over easy eggs over the top. That's my dinner.
That sounds delightful. The
when
food
are we all
blogger I
coming over
follow.
for dinner?
Yeah, let's do it.
Please save me a plate, Gabe.
We could so do like a Zoom dinner. I'd be so good. We all have to eat anyway.
Yeah.
We can eat outside.
We can walk after.
Yeah, we can walk after.
I'm in.
And then final lightning round question. What was more memorable for you, your big league debut with the Tigers or winning in Boston in 04?
Oh, it's not even close. That's definitely winning the World Series. And
yeah.
I'll tell you guys my favorite part about winning the World Series. Once Busch Stadium completely cleared out, we had all celebrated with champagne. It was still dark in the stadium. There's a couple of lights on. I took my 2 sons, who were babies at the time, out to the Busch Stadium mound, and they just crawled around the mound with me. And I was just kind of still feeling the game and remembering what it felt like to run in from right field and jump on that pile. And there I was with my 2 sons in an empty stadium in a soaked t-shirt from Champagne and just spending that time with my sons. And I have pictures of that moment, and it's probably my best memory in my life and certainly on a baseball field.
That's
fantastic. All right.
I'm up here is crying. Okay. We'll now turn it over to Anthony, who is going to start us off with the topic that we know you really want to talk about, which is music, rap music.
So we've been tracking the B crawl brackets, and we had Hunter Bishop on a couple weeks ago, and he was talking about the rap bracket that Brandon Crawford had, and we were pleasantly surprised when you tweeted us and you said you watched the music chat and you said had the B crawl bracket been most clever, E40 may have cut the net. Because we were saying that, as native Bay Areans and you as an outsider, you didn't have a lot of Bay Area rappers going far in your bracket.
Right. And I think the thing that stood out to me about that conversation is that Tupac has Bay roots, right? And I don't think anybody was really talking about that. He spent a lot of time in the Bay, made a lot of music in the Bay. And as he represents, he's also got New York roots, but he represents West Coast. And I think one thing that's not talked about enough is I think he should be classified as not from the Bay necessarily, but with Bay Area roots.
I believe he went to high school or spent part of his childhood in Marin. And so Marin is definitely Bay Area. So you're absolutely right about that.
And there was a lot of collaboration with some Bay Area rappers early on in his career. But your point about E40 is true. Like if this was just about lyrics and we did a whole separate bracket about like rappers that had like really good comedic value and super clever, and I would say that E40 would have been on my list for sure. The one Bay Area rapper that we should probably bring to light is Spice One. And Spice One didn't get talked about at all, which I think he's obviously in that genre of like really gritty, raw, kind of gangster rap, but I think he should have been talked about as like one of the better Bay Area rappers. And if I was going to criticize Craw, and I would say this right now, if there were some rappers that were left off. I think Craw got a lot of grief from.
He did. He definitely did.
And then some groups that didn't really make the cut that I thought was really interesting. So I don't know. What do you guys think?
Well, you kind of seem like you're more in the earlier 90s, and Hunter kind of was giving you some flack about that, about you being an older head. And I think he had Drake winning, you had Tupac winning. So I think we can assume that early mid 90s is kind of your sweet spot of rap music.
Yeah, early mid 90s, but like now I have two sons, right? I have my older son Chase and my younger son Dane, and they're 20 and 18 respectively. And both of them, because they grew up in a house with hip hop. And by the way, they grew up in a house with all sorts of music. So my dad was a classical pianist. My mom and dad played a lot of folk music, blues, jazz. My grandparents both, my grandmother was kind of like a jazz singer. My grandfather played the saxophone. So like our family is crazy, crazy musical, but they did grow up on hip hop. So I mean, even as recently as like a couple of days ago, my sons are recommending artists that they love. So we talk a lot about Chance. We talk a lot about Kendrick. All three of us, share Anderson .Paak clips all day long, every day. He's probably my favorite current hip hop artist. And I'm not even sure I'd classify him as hip hop because there's a little bit of a jazz feel to him, certainly a little bit of R&B, but musically really gifted. So yeah, like I would throw Anderson .Paak on that list in a heartbeat as well.
Another West Coast guy.
You're establishing a lot of street cred, but I do have to ask, if you had to pick, what's your like guilty pleasure music? Like you don't really share it because it's low key embarrassing, but we need to know.
That's definitely Norah Jones.
Oh, I love Norah Jones.
That's not guilty.
That's not guilty. Yeah, she's really good.
Yeah, try that in the big league clubhouse. No, I mean honestly, like I can't tell you how many mornings like coffee, iPad, Norah Jones playing. So that would be my one under the radar. What about you guys? How about some like what are some guilty pleasures that would come up on this Zoom call for you guys?
Oh, like if Kelly Clarkson is playing, I'm gonna lose my voice. That's just happening.
Yeah, that definitely falls into that category.
I'm low key dying to go to a Michael Bublé concert. Like his voice is like butter, and I'm like obsessed with him and his Christmas albums and everything.
It's cool.
Yeah, I love me some boy bands. Can't get enough of my childhood, Backstreet Boys and Boys to Men, that kind of stuff. My poor kid. That's probably what he listens more to.
So when you think about Justin Timberlake, do you think about him in the boy band realm, or do you think about him as like one of the greatest artists in history, probably?
The latter.
He morphed into something totally else other than just a musical artist. He's an entertainer. That's why it's hard to just box him into just a musical performer. He's so much more than that. I mean, but hands down, he's one of my favorite people to watch. Anytime you see him on the Tonight Show or anything like that, it's like, oh, gotta watch JT. I feel like he's my best friend. Doesn't everybody?
Plus, he's hilarious. I've seen him in a bunch of movies.
Yeah.
Yeah, like it's almost like you envy that level of talent, right? The ability to sing, dance, be funny, not take yourself too seriously, comfortable in your own skin, like communicates with everybody, interesting political views. Like last couple tweets have been really interesting, so I'm not going to like opine on what he's talking about, but he's a good follow. So yeah, he's definitely across the board a real superstar.
I think another person with that kind of talent is like Bruno Mars. He's also got like multi-talented.
No doubt. So musically talented for sure.
Yeah.
And someday we'll have Hunter Bishop in this list.
Yeah.
His music?
Wow. How?
I mean, I think you should have some sort of like Hunter Bishop versus Tyler Beatty, Young Beta, as we like to call him, some sort of performance at some point. I feel like that's got to happen.
Is this like your idea of like a rookie hazing kind of event?
No, I
Can be.
can't want to
It
see
absolutely
it. Not to
can
make
be.
fun of them.
Not that Tyler is in that category. He's kind of established, but Hunter has a ways to go. By the way, just to reciprocate some of the love, I love Hunter Bishop, man. He's such an interesting individual and plays so hard. One of the cool things about having Hunter Bishop come over in camp this year is watching a first-round talent hustle the way he does. And he really busts it out of the batter's box, kind of plays like his hair is on fire, and not necessarily like that he is this level yet, but he reminds me in some ways of Bryce Harper. The violence of the swing, the way he plays, not the performance, right? That comes with time, and obviously Bryce has been doing it for 7 years plus and had all sorts of success. But Hunter's got some interesting characteristics that remind me a little bit of Bryce.
Well, we love to hear that.
Yeah.
Yeah, what's not to like about that?
A lot to be excited about. Some of these, younger players in our system that could make a real impact in the years to come.
Yeah, the one that I have my eye on is Sean Jelly. Yeah, because obviously you can't miss him. He's like just a light pole in the sky. But
the jelly orange giant.
The jelly orange giant. But he seems like a very interesting character too. He looks like he could fit in with that kind of quirky vibe that he's got going on. But he's also got a lot of talent.
No doubt, funny, talented, definitely tall. And I think the thing about Jelly that I think gives him the best opportunity to succeed going forward is how different he is. So one of the things that's really helpful for a major league pitcher is, do they have a different look? I think it's part of the reason we're so excited about Tyler Rogers, right? Because the arm angle is so unique. You just don't see a guy dropping down that low. So when you're a hitter in the batter's box, your timing is disrupted, your visual is disrupted, and you just get off your worst swings against pitchers like that. Well, Jelly, obviously, given how tall he is and his release point, he's straight over the top. No balls come out of that angle. So I think that gives him a little bit of a leg up on the competition. And I think it might give him the ability to miss more bats as he grows. And when I say grows, obviously I'm talking about his development as a player.
Yeah, I think he's just topping out at 7 feet now. So I don't think he can grow much more than that.
Right. I think you're probably right. That's probably the peak.
No more milk for that guy. I want to continue with some questions that we have, and then obviously go into fan questions if you're open to that.
Of course.
We're having such a good time getting to know you. Cole, you have a question for the skipper.
Yeah, Gabe, people might not realize as they watch this that you have worn a Giants jersey before on the field. What was the coolest thing about playing in Japan at like the midpoint of your career?
I was like, where's he going with this? A season that I don't remember. Playing in Japan was an interesting experience. I'll separate it out into two categories. The first category is the culture. I love the culture in Japan. The food was amazing. Best Indian food that I've ever had was in Japan.
Really?
Yeah.
Have you ever had London Indian food or anything from the UK?
So I don't think I ate Indian food when I was in London. Indian food is like one of my favorites. So I would, if I spent more time in London, I'm sure I would explore. But I hear they do it really well.
Yeah, I gotta know how they compare.
Do you have a take on the Indian food in London? Is it special?
It's so good. I mean, there's just a lot of Indian, Pakistani immigrants there. So obviously there's just a large population of people. And I think the demand has made the food so good. So there's like high-end Indian, and then there's also just like, hole-in-the-wall type Indian too. And I don't know. I don't think the food in the UK is especially tasty. So I would say the Indian food is
You don't like meat and
not-
potatoes? What's wrong with meat and potatoes?
I would say
Unseasoned
the
meat and
Indian food
potatoes.
here is better. So I really like it, but I didn't try Indian food when I was in Japan. So I have to go back and check.
Do you have a favorite dish, an Indian food dish that you love?
I mean, honestly, I like vindaloo because I just love heat. Like, I love as much heat as you'll give me. I'm from Malaysia, so like I've been eating spicy food since I was in diapers. So as spicy as you'll give me, I'll take it. What about you?
Gabe, I know you're a big goat guy, right?
I do like goat. I mean, like any goat in a spinach sauce is like a sog is really, good for me. But I would definitely share the anything spicy take. And maybe that's a twist on our upcoming Zoom dinner is we just eat the spiciest possible food.
Ooh, spicy ramen challenge?
Longest without sweating.
We should do spicy ramen challenge.
I'm losing. If it's who can sweat the most, I'll win. But
yeah. Japan on the one category was the culture and the food, which was amazing, and the public transportation is off the charts. On the baseball side, it was probably the worst stretch of performance in my career. I was like something like 150 plate appearances and almost no success. And I wasn't physically all that great at the time. I was having like some back issues. And so the baseball side of it was kind of nightmarish. And the off the field, like exploring Japan, late nights, some early mornings, and just like traveling and eating a lot, that was off the charts.
Awesome.
oh, great.
Anthony, you got something?
I do. Gabe, I consider myself a journalist, and as any good journalist does, I went straight to Wikipedia. And I saw that you've got a couple nicknames. I saw Cap was on there. I also saw that you've been referred to as Gabe the Babe, and I don't know if that's because you look like, or you play like Babe Ruth, or maybe because you're so handsome. So maybe that's open to interpretation. But what nickname do you prefer? What would you like Giants fans to call you? Do you have a favorite nickname? Do you have a least favorite nickname?
Definitely not Gabe. Not the latter. I can't even stop that. Probably blushing a little bit. That's I'm definitely in on Cap. Totally simple. You know, like one of the things that's cool about baseball is we just shorten everybody's name. Like that feels natural to me. Our entire staff, our players, Cap's good. Thumbs up there.
Well, maybe when you get to know us better, you can give us nicknames, you know? I've always wanted a cool nickname.
I would love to do that. We're gonna do that as part of our follow-up for sure.
We got a lot of things on the table for Shelter on Base Part 2.
Yeah, for sure. We need to schedule out more time. Therese, what you got?
My question is, since it was Willie Mays' birthday this week and you've had interaction with Willie, what is maybe the most inspirational thing that he's told you, or like the biggest takeaway you've ever had when you've got to talk to the man, the myth, the legend, Willie Mays?
So this is easy for me. One of the things that I miss most about going to the ballpark every day right now is the physical contact, right? So many of us have gone 6+ weeks without any physical contact. And so high fives, handshakes, hugs, like little celebratory moments are so important to me personally. And I think they're so important to our sport. Well, Willie Mays has like the greatest handshake on the planet. So way more important than anything that he's said to me was just the opportunity to shake his hand. And I had a heads up on that handshake from Andrew McCutchen, who was, we were together in Philadelphia, and obviously he was a San Francisco Giants player. So he said, Cap, the thing that you need to know is that Willie Mays will give you the best handshake. And he was spot on. Willie's got such strong, powerful hands, but he's so warm and so engaging and loves to talk. So that's the thing that I'll always remember is his handshake.
Well, I want to move on to some questions from the fans. They definitely want to get to know you too. Caitlin from Instagram wants to know, what do you do? What do you like to do to get to know your team?
I think it's a great question. I get to know our team the same way I get to know any other person. It's through intellectual curiosity and being inquisitive. Just ask a bunch of questions and until I feel like I have a nice, well-rounded view of the person first and the player second. It's easy to analyze and evaluate a player through video, through reading about that player, through analyzing stats. But really it's the human interaction. It's the personal that I value the most. And I guess asking lots of questions.
You can borrow our this or that game if you want. Lend that to you.
I love it. I get a sense of where it's going. And
Jack from IG wants to know, what kind of home workouts have you been doing while you've been sheltering in place?
Yeah, so first sprints. So it's not actually inside, my apartment, but I do get out and run sprints. And anytime I can get a little incline, like last night, there's a parking garage around the corner from my condo complex here in Scottsdale, and it's got some nice steep inclines. So sprints up those inclines, probably my number one go-to, because just from an all-around conditioning perspective, sprints are awesome. Then lots of body weight exercises, push-ups. There's a park that's nearby that's got a pull-up bar. I bring my Lysol, I bring my rag, and I make sure that those things are clean, and then I leave them clean when I leave. Pull-ups are big. Bodyweight squats. If you ever want to wear yourself out, just do those until you're in a lot of pain. So yeah, those are a couple of go-tos for me.
Those are pretty good. Maybe I'll try it out later today.
Your friend will, you mean? Your friend.
My friend. Yeah. My friend. Not me. Why would I do that? Michelle wants to know, on the other end of the spectrum, what is your cheat day meal? Sounds like you keep it pretty to eggs and steak. That's pretty healthy. What do you eat when you're really trying to go after it and indulge?
Wait, when did eggs and steak become healthy?
There's no carbs in there, I don't know.
It's the keto wave.
Yeah,
it's the keto Atkins wave. Paleo.
I always think it's like constantly changing, right? Like one of the interesting things about nutrition is you read something and a year later, what you thought was like super healthy and staying on point is just the opposite. So I don't pay too much attention to what what we read and what's deemed healthy on our behalf. But I'll say my favorite food, I wouldn't even call it cheap. I just say my favorite food is probably deep dish pizza. Ooh. Really, 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 really cold beer. Lots of toppings on that pizza. But, if you put pizza, burgers, burritos, tacos, like any of those would fall into that category. And I would just pair them with different kinds of liquor, wine, or beer.
Good answer.
Yeah, really good answer. We all approve of that. And then Raphael 415 wants to know, do you think CrossFit type workouts work for baseball players?
Great question. So my inclination, and this is not well researched, and I'm sure like there's some CrossFitters out there that aren't going to love this answer, but I think being good at CrossFit comes with really good form and the ability to maintain your form. When you give somebody else a CrossFit workout and say, go do it, I think it introduces some risk of injury. So do I think it would be good for a baseball player who could really stay strong with their form? Yeah, I think it could be good for them, but I wouldn't just like throw a random CrossFit workout at a player and say, go do this workout. I'm not sure how safe that would be.
I agree. I've tried CrossFit once and nobody was looking at my form, and I'm sure I looked just drunk. I don't think I was doing anything right. So I agree with you there. And then I'll finish with a very important last question from user Koopaloo12 from Instagram. Is a hot dog a sandwich?
And just know this is the most important question you're going to ask.
Yeah, so we will judge you on your answer.
I don't even think this is like a difficult question to answer. I don't think it is.
Thank you.
Agreed.
Agreed.
It's a taco.
What have you guys found in your own personal polls?
I think I asked Pete Alonso this question, and he said it was a sandwich, and I was like, no.
He's young. He doesn't know. He's too young to know. Now, the bigger question is cheesecake a pie? To which I say, yes. Cheesecake, not a cake, it's a pie. That's the level of enlightenment I'm at.
So I've heard the hot dog is a sandwich question. Is it or isn't it a sandwich? I have not heard is cheesecake a pie. I'd say
Cake is in the name, Anthony. Cake.
That doesn't make it. That doesn't mean it's a cake.
What do you think,
It
Gabe?
doesn't make it a cake.
my knee-jerk reaction is no, it's not a pie.
Yes.
When I think about a pie, I think about at least well, I guess with this definition, you could call like a graham cracker crust the equivalent of like the bottom layer of a pie. But I think like mostly fruit, and I guess there's Boston cream pie and pecan pie, and this is awesome. We should.
We can agree to disagree, Gabe. It's okay.
Yes, we can do that for sure.
Yeah.
I want a little time to think about.
We'll give you time to think about it because we're going to have you back again since we still have so much more to talk about with you. We've tallied up all the other topics we need to continue. So Shelter on Base Part 2 with Cap will be coming your way. We'll all have steak and eggs for dinner and we'll go walk it off outside. It'll be nice. It'll be a nice little Zoom date for all of us again. But thank you so much for joining us today. We appreciate your time. We know you're busy, and we just cannot thank you enough for taking the time and having some fun with us.
I loved it. Smiled a lot, laughed a lot. You guys look great, and I appreciate you guys having me.
Thank you, Gabe. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thanks so much, man. Sous vide.
So thanks everyone for watching. Next Shelter on Base will drop next week, and we'll have another special guest, maybe a magician of some sort.
Yeah, you may know him as a magician. So we have somebody good coming up. So thank you guys so much for watching.
Yeah.